Relationship Goals. I have been waiting for this book ever since I watched the series on YouTube. So if you haven't seen the series, this book is based on the viral series by Pastor Michael Todd of Transformation Church. He preached a series, Relationship Goals, back in 2017, and it blew up. And I am so glad that he wrote this book. This book is a manual to help you win at relationships. So before I go into the 10 things that I learned while reading this book, I want to start off by talking about what this book is and what this book isn't. So first of all, this book is not a book about how to find the one, how to manifest your future husband, how to land your next date, how to go on a date, none of that. Although you can gain wisdom, and after reading the book, you can gain, some practical steps on how to do those things, how to prepare for a future husband. It's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to read this book because I want a man. No, it's not like that. This book is a guide on how to win at relationships by getting real about your relationship goals as well as the goals that God has for you in a relationship. It's basically a book on how to win at relationships God's way. The thing I love about this book is that this book is not Pastor Michael Todd's opinions about, how to have a good, successful relationship. This book is found on God's word. It is pretty much a mini manual of the Bible, which is our manual for relationships since God created relationships. That's one thing I love about it, is it's a biblical standard and not a cultural standard for relationship. So now that we cleared up what this book is and what this book isn't, we're going to go ahead and jump into the 10 major keys that I found while reading the Relationship Goals book. There's going to be so many more things. I'm telling you, there are so many things Pastor Mike talks about in this book that are so beneficial to us, but I'm just going to point out the 10 main things that I got while reading the book. 1, you are going to gain wisdom and practical steps on how to win at relationships God's way. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, the only relationship advice I was ever given was don't have sex before you're married. And I don't know about you also, but that did not help me when it came to relationships, especially when I was younger in, some serious relationships. That didn't really help me. It didn't teach me a lot about how to win at relationships and how to have successful relationships. So this book is definitely going to give you those practical steps on how to do relationships God's way. Second, you are going to realize how important your relationship with God is before any other relationship in your life. God is our standard for relationships. Before we have a relationship with anyone else, we have a relationship with Him, and He should be our number one priority as well as our number one relationship goal. And all blessings flow out of our relationship with Him, including relational blessings. The third thing I love about this book is it teaches you how to be content in every season of your life, whether you're single, dating, or married. It addresses all of these areas. A couple weeks ago, Pastor Michael Todd preached a sermon, and he had mentioned something about blessings and burdens. With every season, you're going to have a blessing and a burden. Whether you're single, whether you're dating, whether you're married, there's going to be pros and cons in every season that you have. But the important thing is to be content and to make the most out of each season that you're in, because each season is a blessing from God. In your single season, you're going to find place, you're going to find purpose, and you're going to be preparing for the future spouse that God has for you. In the dating season, Pastor Michael Todd teaches how to be intentional with your dating, how to set boundaries, how to do dating God's way in a way that's honoring and glorifying to Him. And finally, marriage. It's going to teach you how to be successful in marriage. Now the fourth thing, and this is why I love Pastor Michael Todd, because he is so real, and I love how he talks about things that we really deal with in society and in the church as Christians. These are serious issues that we deal with, and I love how he is so hot about them. If you're part of Transformation Church and Transformation Nation, you know that the word we use is hot, humble, open, and transparent. And Pastor Michael Todd is very hot about this subject that is sex, and this is something that he spends 2 chapters on in the book because of how serious it is. You're really going to learn the importance and the sacredness of sex. Pastor Michael Todd talks about, sexual immorality, fornication, sexual purity, generational curses, soul ties, so many things that stem out of sex, and how society has labeled sex as this normal thing, do it whenever, however you want to. But it really gives us a biblical standard of sex and how sex was created for marriage. So that's another important thing that you're going to learn from this book that you may not have learned anywhere else in your life. Now, the fifth thing I gained from this book was how to reflect on past relationships, mistakes I made, issues I encountered, and how to set better relational targets and goals for my future relationships. That is so important because in order to get better, you have to be able to look back and see, okay, I did this wrong. This was a mistake. I could have handled this better. In this book, because it talks to you about these biblical standards and practical steps on how to win at relationships, you're going to easily be able to identify what you didn't do. This is something that I should have done, but back then I did it wrong. And you're going to be able to reflect and to do this better in the future. Sixth, I learned how to heal from past relationships. Now that's going to look different from everyone, but just as I went through the book, and as I said before, as Michael Todd laid out the practical steps for winning at relationships, it just gave me a hope that, okay, yeah, these past relationships didn't work out, but I have a hope for the future, which is why I'm reading this book. Because when I start dating again, when God brings me my future spouse, I want to get it right this time. And so in order to go forward, you have to make sure that you are completely healed from past hurts, past breakups, past relationships, because you don't want to bring your hurt and your pain into your next relationship, because that's just going to cause more problems than it needs to. The seventh thing I learned from this book is real successful relationships require real sacrifice. Now, I'm single. I've been in relationships before, but these were, when I was in high school. I was young, was not mature enough for relationships, definitely didn't know what I was doing. But now that I'm older, I'm able to reflect. I'm able to see the things I did wrong and get better. Also, while reading this book, going through the dating and the marriage phase, I was able to realize that you really have to put in a lot of work for a relationship. It's going to require real sacrifice. It's going to require you dying to yourself every day when you wake up, especially in marriage. You have to now consider someone else's wants, someone else's needs, and you have to sacrifice your time, your money, your resources, everything. You're going to have to get rid of old habits. You're going to have to create new habits. You're going to have to get rid of pride, which is a big deal for a lot of people. A lot of us are very prideful. And even myself, I can be prideful at some times. And you have to you can't think of I, you have to think of we. And it's so much easier said than done. A lot of us think like, oh, I'm ready for a relationship, but are you really? Like, are you willing to die to yourself every day when you wake up and put someone else's needs before yours? Are you ready to have them show you your flaws? Are you ready to have them show you, areas that you need to grow in? Because that's the whole purpose of relationships is, you're pursuing your purpose, you're walking in your calling, and you have this other person who helps you grow. And to help you grow, they have to point out things within you, that you have to work on. And so you have to really be humble about that. You can't get offended, when they tell you things like, oh, you can do better in this area. And so that's just something that I've realized. There's a lot of internal things I need to work on within myself, because I want to be at my best when I'm in a relationship. I want to be whole. A relationship is not, I don't agree that a relationship is you complete me, you're my better half. No, a relationship is two whole people together. And that's what I want to be when I'm in a relationship. Eighth, this book taught me that true love is attainable, especially when you look to culture. It seems like, everyone's breaking up, marriages are just failing left and right, but true love is so attainable. And I especially look up to Pastor Michael Todd and Pastor Natalie Todd, because they have just been so hot about their relationships, their ups and downs. And you can have a successful relationship if you keep God at the center. And that's something I really admire about them, as well as other couples who have kept God in the center of their relationship. Because in the word, it says true love does not fail. And God does not want us to be in marriages that fail. He hates divorce. And so I'm just believing, and this book really taught me that, you can attain true love first with God and then with someone else, with a future spouse. Now, number 9, you are going to learn major keys to a successful marriage. And that is actually a title of one of the chapters, but it is so true. Even though I'm single, I really enjoyed this chapter because obviously I aspire to be married one day. I mean, I don't want to be single my whole life. But I aspire to be married one day, and it's good to have these, it's good to know what a successful marriage looks like before you get into a marriage. It's good to have these practical steps. It's good to have the wisdom and the knowledge before you get into marriage. That way when conflict comes up, how to resolve it, how to talk to your partner in a way that, is honorable to them. And just a few of the keys that they talk about, Pastor Michael Todd. So you're going to learn the difference between your spouse's wants and your spouse's needs. That is so critical to marriage, is learning what your spouse needs and what they want. You're also going to learn how to resolve conflict that is honoring to God, and you're also going to learn how to speak your love languages based on Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages, because that is very critical to a marriage as well. And finally, number 10, and I think this is really one of the most important things, is you're going to learn how to better your relationships all around. Although this book is focused on, romantic relationships and dating and marriage, you're really going to learn how to better your relationships all around. For me personally, I don't think that I can love someone like a future spouse, my husband, if I don't learn how to love the people who God has already blessed me with in my life. So my family, my parents, my brothers, my sisters, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, friends. These are people that God has already blessed me with in my life, who I love. And I think it's very important that we learn how to love others. We shouldn't just be aspiring to be this best person in our romantic relationships, but how to be a better sister, how to be a better daughter, how to be a better granddaughter, how to be a better niece, a better cousin, a better friend. These are also important. And so I think, especially if you're single, focus on how you can be better in these relationships while you're waiting for your future spouse to come along. I think this is so important, because when you're cultivating these relationships that God's already blessed you with, it's so much easier to cultivate this other relationship that comes along. And so that's just a major key to me. You have to first God, then if you're single, your other relationships, family and friends, and then a romantic relationship. God's given us community. He wants us to have community. And in order to have good community, you have to be a good person. And you have to, be a better person. You have to strive daily to see, how can I be a better friend? How can I be a better family member? And that sort of thing. And this book is definitely going to point out those character flaws to you and what you need to work on. So in addition to the book, I also got this study guide, and I also did the Relationship Goals Devotional on the YouVersion Bible app. So just my little feedback on the study guide. The study guide is really good, but the thing is, it's very much for a group setting, and I was doing this by myself, so it was a little bit challenging just based on the questions and the discussion points. You have discussions and then you're supposed to talk amongst them with other people, and of course that was hard if you're doing it by yourself. I mean, you can obviously reflect, but it's just good to be able to do it with a group because it's meant for a group setting. So that would be my only thing, but other than that, it was a very good devotional. And one thing I really like about devotions is having the opportunity to reflect. So much reflection that goes on in this book. So I definitely encourage you, if you have a group setting, to purchase the study guide. And then finally, the YouVersion Bible app. This was a good devotional. The only thing about it was I felt like it only stayed on one topic. Which it's not bad. It's a very important topic that we all need to learn. It's how to cultivate your relationship with God, make him your number one relationship goal priority. But it was a 5-day devotional, so I was expecting it to touch more on the topics that Pastor Mike talks about in the book, but it really didn't. And Pastor Mike talks about so many things in the book that are so beneficial. So that was really the only disappointing part about the devotional, but I still encourage you to do it. Still do it, but still get the book as well, because the devotional does not talk about everything that goes on in the book. It only touches like a fraction of it. That is my review, guys. I really, really love this book. I got it when the pre-order copy came out. I was so lucky to get the pre-order copy, and so I've read this book twice. I'm about to read it 3 times because every time I read it, I get a new revelation. I learn something new, and I'm just making sure that my relational goal, my relational target is set on the right thing, because I want to do relationships right. I'm tired of getting them wrong. I want to have a successful, long-lasting marriage, and so that's my whole goal with this book. And so I really, really encourage you to get it. If you've experienced breakup after breakup, even if you've never been in a dating relationship, I really encourage you to get this book, because it is just going to bless you so much. And it's a book that you can read over and over and over and over again, and you're always going to learn something new, and it's just going to talk to every season of your life. And I'm just throwing this in there. I especially feel lucky that I had the opportunity to read this book as I'm single, because I'll be able to read it when I reach those different relational phases. So as I'm single, when I'm dating, I plan to read this book again, and when I get married, I plan to read this book again. So I just feel really lucky that I get to go through every season with this book right beside me, giving me practical steps and wisdom on how to win at relationships God's way.